Returning home from his U.S. trip, Trade Minister Yeo says Seoul and Washington will continue their tariff talks, adding that a swift passage of the U.S. investment bill by the National Assembly will help resolve the issue. The U.S. has unveiled a critical minerals trade bloc called Forge and invited South Korea to serve as the chair. Meanwhile, the South Korean government has also announced a comprehensive plan to bolster the country's supply chains for rare earth elements. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping held phone talks on Wednesday, which Trump said covered the Ukraine war and the situation in Iran, while Xi prioritized Taiwan as the most important issue. Trade Minister Yeo says he held multiple rounds of tariff talks with American authorities in D.C. and that tariff-related negotiations will continue in the coming week. Our Eun-jin starts us off.
Upon returning from a week-long trip to Washington, South Korea's Trade Minister Yeo said that he did not meet U.S. Trade Representative Chief Jamieson Greer in person, but that South Korea will remain in close consultations to reach a resolution before the Trump administration formalizes proposed tariff hikes. Speaking to reporters at Incheon Airport Thursday morning, Yeo highlighted the importance of whether the U.S. will immediately raise tariffs upon issuing a federal register or whether there would be a grace period of about 1 to 2 months. During his trip, Yeo met with the deputy U.S. Trade Representative and around 20 U.S. lawmakers to reaffirm Seoul's commitment to passing the bill that implements a bilateral trade deal. He stressed that Seoul is ready to faithfully and swiftly implement the tariff agreement, arguing that an immediate tariff increase would be inappropriate given South Korea's good faith efforts. Meanwhile, he welcomed the rival party's decision Wednesday to establish a special committee to advance the U.S. investment bill within a month, saying it would help resolve the ongoing trade tensions with the U.S. Yeo's trip came after President Trump made a surprise announcement on January 26th of a plan to raise reciprocal tariffs and auto duties on South Korea back to 25%. This was largely based on perceptions that delays in National Assembly deliberations on enacting the bilateral trade agreement raised doubts about South Korea's willingness. The bilateral trade deal, authorizing a $350 billion investment in the U.S., had lowered tariffs to 15%. Trade is crucial to the South Korean economy, where exports are equivalent to about 40% of GDP, with the U.S. as its second largest market. Eun-jin, Arirang News.
Now, Washington is stepping up its push to secure raw materials, at this time by creating a new trade bloc for critical minerals as an apparent effort to defend against China's stranglehold on the key minerals. Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
The United States has formally moved to rally allies into a new trade bloc aimed at reshaping global supply chains for critical minerals, resources essential to defense systems and advanced industries, and has invited South Korea to take part. The initiative was unveiled on Wednesday at a ministerial-level meeting in Washington, where U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance announced plans to establish what he called a critical minerals trading bloc, designed to diversify supply chains and reduce over-reliance on any single country. Vance said that while much attention is paid to the digital and high-tech economy, growth ultimately depends on tangible resources.
There's no realer thing than critical minerals. And I think a lot of us have learned the hard way, in some ways, over the last year, how much our economies depend on these critical minerals.
At the core of the proposal is a preferential trade zone for allies and partners, featuring price floors for critical minerals. Under the plan, benchmark prices would be set at each stage of production to reflect what U.S. officials describe as fair market value, with adjustable tariffs acting as a backstop against external shocks. The meeting was attended by South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Hyun alongside officials from Australia, India, and Japan. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States is seeking to collaborate with 55 partner countries on what has been dubbed the new Forge initiative, noting that many have already signed on. He warned that global supply chains for critical minerals are heavily concentrated in the hands of one country, leaving them vulnerable to geopolitical leverage and disruptions ranging from political instability to pandemics. The State Department also said South Korea will serve as chair of the Forge initiative through June, building on its leadership role in the Minerals Security Partnership, or MSP. Rubio thanked South Korea for filling a leadership gap ahead of Forge's launch, noting that Seoul played a leading role in the MSP, a multilateral partnership involving 16 countries and the European Union aimed at strengthening global critical mineral supply chains. The push underscores how critical minerals are increasingly viewed not just as commodities but as strategic assets, central to economic growth, industrial competitiveness, and national security. 문혜련, Arirang News.
The leaders of the U.S. and China spoke on the phone on Wednesday, and centering their latest talks included trade, Taiwan, and situation in Ukraine and Iran. Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he held a long and thorough and positive phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Wednesday, covering issues from trade to global security in talks that could set the stage for his planned visit to Beijing in April. In a post on Truth Social on the same day, President Trump said the two leaders discussed the war in Ukraine, the situation in Iran, and Taiwan. He noted Taiwan had not come up during their first in-person meeting in South Korea late last year, suggesting it could become a key topic in upcoming talks. China's foreign ministry confirmed that Taiwan was discussed and underscored the sensitivity of the topic. Beijing described Taiwan as the most important issue in China-U.S. relations, tied to China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It also urged Washington to handle arms sales to Taiwan with caution. At the same time, China signaled it remains open to dialogue. In its statement, Beijing expressed hope that 2026 could be a year of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation, while warning that China has its own concerns and will match words with actions. On trade, President Trump said China reaffirmed plans to buy more U.S. energy and agricultural products. He pointed to possible increases in soybean purchases to as much as 20 million tons in the current season, along with discussions on airplane deliveries. Calling his relationship with Xi extremely good, Trump said both sides recognize the importance of stable ties and predicted positive results over the next 3 years. The call marks their first since late November and comes as the two powers balance strategic rivalry with deep economic links. It also raises the possibility that Trump's April trip to China could create diplomatic openings on North Korea, though it is unclear whether Pyongyang is ready to engage. Meanwhile, Xi and Russian President Vladimir Putin recently held a separate video call focused on strengthening cooperation, maintaining strategic stability, and coordinating their approach to the United States. The two leaders have continued to highlight their partnership amid tensions with the West, signaling that Beijing and Moscow intend to keep close communication on security and geopolitical issues. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Fears of a new global arms race are growing as the new strategic arms reduction treaty between the U.S. and Russia officially expired on Thursday, ending more than half a century of regulated nuclear arsenals. Cho Young-eun tells us more.
The new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty had been the last remaining pillar of the nuclear arms control between Washington and Moscow. Its expiration leaves the world's two largest nuclear powers without any binding limits on their nuclear stockpiles for the first time in more than 50 years. Most recently signed in 2010, the treaty kept deployed nuclear warheads at 1,550 each, also containing provisions for mutual inspections aimed to prevent catastrophic nuclear conflicts. Dialogue between Washington and Moscow came to a pause following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, while Russian President Vladimir Putin also proposed a one-year extension of the treaty. U.S. President Donald Trump insisted that any future nuclear arms agreements must include China, citing its rapidly expanding nuclear arsenal. More recently, in January, according to the New York Times, Trump has downplayed concerns over the treaty's expiration. United Nations Security General Antonio Guterres has warned that the treaty's expiration is a grave moment for international peace and security, urging both nations to resume negotiations without delay. He called for a new framework that restores verifiable limits, reduces risk, and strengthens global security. Earlier, Pope Leo XIV also appealed to both sides to renew the treaty, emphasizing the urgent need to prevent a renewed arms race. Its end also marks the collapse of decades of arms control cooperation that helped ease Cold War tensions, raising fresh fears of a renewed global arms race. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
Ukrainian and Russian officials resumed productive new U.S. brokered talks on Wednesday in Abu Dhabi. Meanwhile, Russia has intensified its offensive even while the talks were underway. Cha Yong-kyung reports.
The two-day trilateral meetings between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine resumed on Wednesday local time in Abu Dhabi. U.S. representatives included Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of U.S. President Donald Trump. The negotiations reportedly focused mainly on military issues and concluded after about 5 hours. After wrapping up the first day of talks, the Ukrainian side described the discussions as substantive and productive, saying they will focus on concrete measures and solutions. While specific details have not been disclosed, foreign media outlets reported that Russia and Ukraine remain far apart on key issues. Russia is demanding the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the Donbas region and territorial concessions, while Ukraine is countering with a proposal to freeze the current front lines and establish a demilitarized zone. Another major sticking point is whether Russia would accept a U.S.-led security framework aimed at preventing a renewed Russian invasion after the war. Meanwhile, shortly after the talks began, Russian forces struck a crowded market in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine with cluster munitions, killing and wounding civilians. Although the talks are expected to continue for one more day, observers say it is unlikely that the negotiations will gain momentum as Russia has intensified its offensive even while the talks are underway. Cha Yong-kyung, Arirang News.
With a major political event likely to take place soon in North Korea, one big question is whether leader Kim Jong-un's daughter will be making an appearance and what that means for the regime's future leadership. Oh Soo-young has more.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un is expected to take center stage at the Workers' Party Congress, the regime's biggest political event in 5 years. But attention may also turn to his young daughter Kim Joo-ae if she's waiting in the wings, as questions grow about her future role. Kim Joo-ae first appeared publicly in November 2022, accompanying her father at an intercontinental ballistic missile launch. Cited as beloved and respected child by state media, she looks to be in her early teens. Succession rumours have swirled, but she had only appeared on a small number of occasions until this year. In January, state media showed Kim Joo-ae alongside her father during a New Year visit to the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the embalmed bodies of North Korea's first and second leaders lie in state.
The images show Kim Joo-ae positioned at the center, where Kim Jong-un should have been standing, signaling her potential future succession.
Since then, her media exposure has been frequent, raising speculation that she might attend the upcoming Workers' Party Congress. It's where North Korea sets its political line and reshapes its leadership structure.
If she attends, there's a strong chance she could be elected to a second command position, such as the party's first secretary or vice chair of the Central Military Commission.
Kim Jong-un himself was first brought into public view through party appointments in 2010, years before his leadership was formally consolidated at the 2016 Party Congress. Experts say Kim Jong-un may be paving the way for his daughter to take over by easing her position into the system.
Just as North Korea created the first secretary role in 2021 without public disclosure, it is also possible that even if Kim Joo-ae is appointed to a second-in-command role, this could be classified for the time being.
But structural changes could provide a hint.
Also, at a party congress, there are major reshuffles, not only at the top, but also among mid-level cadres. If Kim Joo-ae emerges as a successor, a large-scale generational turnover is likely to follow, along with increased advancement of female cadres.
There are differing views on Kim Joo-ae's role, with some analysts arguing that she may never succeed her father. But in North Korea, where optics are tightly managed, any exposure at the party congress wouldn't be accidental. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has vowed to change the heavy concentration of resources in the capital, saying it's a fundamental solution to what he called ruinous real estate speculation. Presiding over a meeting with his aides today, he promised to shift towards growth led by regions outside the capital, noting a growing population gap between regions. He added that using land in a more balanced way is crucial for the sustainability of the country. The president once again vowed to prioritize tax breaks and other financial benefits for areas located far from the capital. He also suggested changing procurement policy to prioritize purchasing products made in rural areas. And President Lee Jae-myung says science and technology are key to South Korea's competitiveness. The statement was shared on this Thursday at the Blue House, where he hosted recipients of the Presidential Science Scholarship and winners of International Science Olympiads. President Yeo pledged to promote government support beyond short-term scholarships to cover researchers throughout their careers. He also promised expanding alternative military service options for those studying science and technology. In South Korea, men subject to mandatory military service who hold a master's or doctorate degree in those fields may fulfill their duty by working as researchers at designated institutions for 3 years. South Korea is stepping up its first major initiative to secure one of the most critical materials in modern tech, rare earths. For more, our Park Jun-han has the details.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources unveiled on Thursday the country's first comprehensive rare earth supply chain strategy. The roadmap comes as part of an effort to enhance the country's energy capability by reducing its heavy dependence on imports, especially from China. Rare earths power everything from electric vehicle motors and high-performance magnets to semiconductors and defense systems, which are crucial components for modern technology. Yet, global powerhouses are concerned because China controls roughly 60 to 70% of global mining, 85 to 90% of refining, and over 80% of finished products such as permanent magnets. For a high-tech powerhouse like Korea, specializing in electric vehicles, batteries, and chips, not being able to secure rare earth minerals is a major vulnerability. The government's rare earth supply chain projects include the 3 major pillars of short-term stability, source diversification and share risks, and, lastly, local substitution. For short-term stability, the government will strengthen its cooperation with all sources, designate all 17 rare earths as critical elements, and create new detailed trade codes so it can track supplies much more accurately. Regarding the diversification of sources and shared risk, overseas project financing will see major increases from last year's 39 billion Korean won to 67.5 billion won in 2026, or around $46 million. The government will cover up to 70% of loans from last year's 50%, and if exploration fails, companies will only lose 10% of their investment instead of 20%. The Korea Mine Rehabilitation and Mineral Resources Corporation is coming back after years of being banned from direct overseas investment. The corporation will now lead high-risk projects, so private companies don't have to carry the political risk alone. Lastly, the government will offer subsidies to domestic factories that utilize recycling and change the rules governing this. It will also detail a full R&D roadmap covering the use of substitutes and launch new rare earth R&D funding under its existing Innovation Fund. The government added that it will focus its policy capabilities to build a foundation across the entire rare earth supply chain with unwavering resolve, creating a robust industrial structure that remains steadfast even amid changes in the external environment. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
As Korea becomes a super-aged society at an unprecedented pace, retirement is no longer the end of working for many older adults. Government initiatives and private companies are opening new doors for those older workers. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin talks to various stakeholders in the field on this issue.
Kim Jong-un is 68 years old, and he retired less than a decade ago. For a while, retirement felt like rest. Then it started to feel like stagnation. That's why Kim is back on the job. 3 years ago, he began working as a delivery man, checking delivery routes and delivering food to regular customers.
Older adults doing delivery work. I felt a bit startled at the beginning too. But now, as long as my body allows it, I want to keep working.
Kim is one of the older delivery workers employed by a startup that hires people aged 55 to 74 as delivery personnel for scheduled logistics services.
I think it's a good initiative for these companies to work with government support and hire older workers. We also feel very proud to be doing something.
The company focuses on stable work for active older adults who want to remain economically and socially engaged. It started as an effort to help create workplaces for those who are in poverty or suffer from extreme loneliness.
Our biggest goal is to become a leading HR platform that supplies older workers where human resources are needed.
It's the sense of purpose that what many of those above 60 say they miss after retirement. And that's why both central and local governments, like the Seoul metropolitan government, are pledging to create 330,000 jobs for both public and private for older adults by 2040. And that's what the Seoul Senior Job Support Center has been working on. To address the gap between willing older workers and the market, the center supports seniors like Kim, offering not only job matching services, but also educational and training programs.
Retirement is not an end. My hands-on experience can be helpful to others and have a meaningful role in society.
Up to now, jobs for older adults have largely focused on public sector positions and relatively simple manual labor. We work on creating opportunities in the private sector employment.
The Health Ministry announced earlier this week that it plans to provide more than 1.15 million jobs for older adults this year, a record number. And that's why a lawmaker says she continues to propose legislation, emphasizing the need for further budget allocation.
Government-provided jobs for these older workers are actually way below demand, but it benefits them in economic, health, and social ways. It's not just welfare, but a social investment as well.
As Korea further advances into a super-age society, the integration of workers like Kim will be inevitable as they become recognized for their potential as an untapped workforce. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
Robots are no longer just science fiction or manufacturing tools found in factories. They are walking into our daily lives and now even our local electronic stores. For the first time here in South Korea, a major retailer has begun selling humanoid robots directly to consumers. Our Kim Do-yeon visited one to see for himself. Do-yeon, welcome.
Thank you for having me. That's right. It's a scene we usually expect at tech expos, not really where we shop at normally.
Right.
But as I found out, this launch is just more than what it seems like, just sales figures. It is a ways to signal the era of the service robot that has actually officially arrived in Korea. And here's a story. A robot stands at the entrance greeting customers. It is a familiar sight for those who follow the Consumer Electronics Show, but this is not Las Vegas. It is a local electronics retailer here in Seoul. Starting this week, the humanoid model and a robotic dog have gone on sale. The human robot carries a price tag of 31 million won, or roughly $21,500 US.
I saw the exhibition passing by and thought I could see the ones that I saw on CES videos. From seeing them in real life, I feel like the future of having them at home and in our daily lives is not far off. I'm excited for further improvements from here.
Manufactured by Unitree, a Chinese robotics firm, these models were released here almost simultaneously with their launch in China. While they currently lack integrated AI features and require remote operation, the swift release signals the company's aggressive strategy to secure a foothold in the Korean market. It also highlights the growing interest in the humanoid robot market. This store has dedicated a specialized zone for the robots, the first of its kind in the country. 14 different models are on display, ranging from AI-powered elderly care assistants to educational companions. These smaller robots are designed for your desk and emotional exchanges. There are some physical exchanges as well. For example, they like to be petted. But make sure you don't cross the line, because if you hit them, they might strike back. A simpler alternative is the Sense robot, an automated Go player. Priced at over 1.3 million won, it is a premium device, particularly when digital versions are available at little to no cost. However, it offers a tactile experience that screens cannot mimic.
Playing on computers, you have to move the mouse, but with this, you actually use stones. This makes it feel real and more fun than playing virtually.
Retailer eMart reports that the displays have already generated sales, including one of the quadruped units. However, the company states the primary objective is not immediate revenue, but to familiarize consumers with the technology that will soon become part of daily life.
Doyeon, it's fascinating to see them standing right there in the store. But you mentioned in your report that these models, specifically the Chinese ones, don't have AI fully integrated yet. They have to be controlled manually. So why are they selling them now? I mean, what is the strategy here?
I mean, that's right. To the average consumer, buying a 30 million robot is really impractical if you actually have to control them.
Right.
It's like an expensive remote control car. But they do have their uses. These robots serve as research platforms. Universities, labs, and tech companies buy them to test their own AI software. But putting them in retail, as we saw, is for another goal. There is a strong element of market preemption. By putting these in a familiar retail setting, they are normalizing the image of Chinese robotics in the minds of Korean consumers.
For the general public, there is little practical utility yet. But this launch seems driven by secondary goals, building brand value and establishing a market image.
So essentially, they are planting the flag. They want to be the iPhone of robots before the market even fully matures.
You know, that is concerning for Korea as a domestic industry, but we did see at CES that, you know, Hyundai Motors and Doosan Robotics have strengthened robotics. The question is, where does Korea stand at the moment?
Right, and it comes down to a fundamental focus of what they're doing. Now, Korea has traditionally been the global leader in industrial robots, the massive arms you see wielding cars and factories. Korea excels at hardware that performs repetitive tasks in structured environments. But service robots, robots that live in our home, are a completely different beast. They need to navigate unstructured environments, dodging a running pad, handling laundry, or recognizing a glass door. To do that, you need data, massive amounts of lifestyle data. This is where the race gets interesting. While we don't see them in stores today, the Mystic Giants are preparing their counterattacks. At CES this year, electronics drew massive attention with its new humanoid, the LG Electronics, the Cloyd. The reason analysts are optimistic about Cloyd isn't just the hardware, it's LG's ecosystem. LG has a good market share in home appliances, washing machines, refrigerators, air purifiers, and robot vacuums. These devices have been collecting data on Korean lifestyles for years via their smart platforms. But of course, the commercialization of Cloyd isn't official yet. We saw how it operates so far at CES, but we're going to have to wait at least a couple of years before we see them in stores.
Just a couple of years. Doyeon, thanks for the coverage.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Despite the hazy skies, today definitely feel nicer, almost like early spring. But the winter chill is coming back. There will be a big drop in readings overnight, and cold wave advisories have been already reissued for the capital area and parts of Chungcheongdo provinces. And by tomorrow morning, lows will be plunging down to -8 degrees Celsius here in the capital. And this strong cold spell will continue through the weekend. But until that colder air blows in, the dust level will keep rising to a very bad level in the capital region. Checking on tomorrow's temperatures now, Seoul and Chuncheon will begin the day at -8 degrees Celsius, Gwangju beginning the day at -4 degrees Celsius. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to -3 degrees, nearly 10 degrees lower than today, Busan at 8 degrees. Don't forget to bundle up for Friday. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.